Okay, so today we are going to wrap up Let's Be Rational Investigation 4. This video is designed to kind of hit the highlights of investigations 1, 2, and 3 and kind of summarize and pull it all together. In class the next 2 days you'll be solving problems that will be an extension of this concept. So please make sure that you watch the video and are able to apply the knowledge within. So the first thing we're going to talk about is fact families. Now, fact families is a pretty basic concept, and we learned about them. We've been learning about fact families for a long time. We probably talked about them back in elementary school, second grade, first grade, when we learned how to add and subtract, third and fourth grade when we used multiplication and division a little bit more. But now we are going to extend that knowledge of fact families into building and solving equations. And so, just real quickly, a fact family is a set of 4 facts that are related. It would be 2 addition and 2 subtraction sentences, or there could be 2 multiplication and 2 division sentences. Okay, and so I've got a couple of examples here for you, one without variables and one with variables. Please note that in our addition, the larger number is our sum, and when we go to subtraction, the sum becomes the number that we are subtracting from. Okay, and then in multiplication, we've got the two factors that equal the product, and then when we make our switch over to division, we would move the product to the number that we are dividing. And how we use our fact families to help us solve equations is by moving the variable to the other side of the equation and then getting everything else on the other side. So it balances. So in this setup right here, we have taken an addition sentence and moved everything over here through using fact families to where all we have to do is solve this problem to figure out what n equals, and n in this case would equal 1/8. And the same thing here, we have 17 times n. In order to solve for n, we'd have to divide both sides by 17, and it can get kind of convoluted and crazy. So at times, now not always, with one-step equations it's pretty straightforward, but another way of using that would be to rewrite this problem as a number sentence where n is on one side of the equation and 51 divided by 17 is on the other, and therefore if we solve this side, we get what n equals. Okay, and so it kind of balances out. In an equation, both sides need to be equal. That's why we use equal signs. So it's kind of like a scale. We want one side to be equal to the other. All right, so let's take a look at a few problems. All right, in the first problem, I have problem A here, and these are out of your book. Sammy the turtle can walk 1/8 of a mile an hour. How many hours will it take him to walk 1 1/4 miles? Well, first off, I'm going to highlight some stuff that I need from this problem. I need to know 1/8, 1 1/4, and then I need to know my question of how many hours will it take. Okay? Because that question gives me an implication of what type of operation I am doing. And since it just simply states how many hours will it take him, okay, how many kind of indicates a subtraction or division. Well, in this case, he's walking 1/8 of a mile per hour, so that's in 1 hour. So in 2 hours, it would be 2/8, in 3 hours, it would be 3/8, so on and so forth. And I'm trying to figure out how long it would take him to walk 1 1/4. So after he's done that, I can solve this using division. So in this case, how many is telling me that I need to divide. So my number sentence is going to be looking like 1 1/4 divided by 1/8 equals, and then because I don't have that answer yet, I'm going to go ahead and set up a variable. Now, using fact families, I could also have set this up using multiplication, saying that 1/8 of a mile per hour times n number of hours is going to equal 1 1/4. Okay, so both of these are from the same fact family, but this one, using division first, gives me n on one side and everything else on the other. So I'm going to solve the division part here, and then we'll go over and I'll show you how we can balance this equation using it in the form that it comes. So first things first, we're going to rewrite this as an improper fraction. Okay. And then because I like to multiply by the reciprocal, that's what's familiar to me, I'm going to rewrite this as 5/4 times 8 over 1. Okay, and then I'm going to be looking for things that I can cancel out. And 4 and 8 share a factor of 2. And they also share a factor of 4. So I can cross the 4 off and make it a 1, and I can cross the 8 off and make it a 2, and I kind of simplify my problem before I solve. So 5 times 2 is 10, 1 times 1 is 1, and then I write my answer as 10, and since we're talking about how long, it's going to take him 10 hours. All right, so the next thing we can do, if we take this multiplication problem that we have, I need to get the n all by itself. Well, let's look at what's happening with the n. The n is being multiplied by 1/8. So in order to clear this side and make it all go over here, I have to divide this side by 1/8. Okay, to get rid of it, because I'm multiplying by 1/8 here, I have to divide by 1/8. Okay, so that cancels it out, and all I'm left with is an n. Okay, but I have to keep my equation balanced. Okay, so what that means is I have to do the same thing to the other side. So I have to divide 1 1/4 by 1/8. Okay, now this uses the property of math called the property of equality. It states that what we do to one, we have to do to the other. We use it all the time with fractions. We're going to use it with equations. It's how we keep things balanced. All right, so I don't like the way this looks, so I am going to rewrite this as 5/4 over 1/8. I'm going to clear my denominator by multiplying 1/8 by its reciprocal to make it a 1, and therefore I have to do the same thing to my numerator of 5/4 to make it a 1. I'll go ahead and cross cancel just like I did earlier, okay, which gives me a 1 here and a 2 up there. And then I get 10 over 1 over 1. So we can really drop this one and look solely at this, and then that turns itself into 10 hours. All right, so this was a little bit more confusing. However, this is what you're going to be having to do eventually. So this whole fact family thing is very, very neat in the fact that it gives us what we need without having to set up and do all of this extra work. All right, so let's take a look at B. B says Jamarcus plans to build a fence that is 5 1/3 yards long. So we're going to need 5 1/3 at the back of his garden. How many 2/3 sections does he need? Okay, so 2/3 is the other number we'll need. And then it says how many sections will he need? So how many 2/3 will fit into 5 1/3? So I'm going to set up a multiplication problem with 5 1/3 and 2/3 and a variable. So real quick, let me label this as A for you. Then I'll go down here and we're going to do B. Okay, so I need 5 1/3 and 2/3. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up and I am trying to figure out how many 2/3 sections would equal 5 1/3. So 2/3 multiplied by we don't know, we don't have a number for that yet, would equal 5 1/3. Okay, well this is multiplication. Okay, and again, I could solve this by dividing and balancing my equation, or I can simply reorganize this fact into a fact that's part of the same fact family. Well, if I do that, then I'm going to take 5 1/3 here, and I'm going to make it a division sentence, because I'm going to take 5 1/3 divided by 2/3 should equal n. Okay, and the reason I'm going with that is because there would be another multiplication fact, which would be n times 2/3 equals 5 1/3, and there would be another division sentence that would say 5 1/3 divided by n equals 2/3. Okay, and so we're really doing the same thing here as we did up here, the same thing in this problem that we did up here for A, but I'm showing you why I choose which fact to work on. So I'm going to use this one. because it already sets up with everything, all my numbers on one side of my equation and my variable on the other. Meaning that if I solve this problem, it will tell me exactly what n equals. So I'm going to use the common denominator strategy for dividing fractions. So the first step here is to turn this to an improper fraction. So 3 times 5 is 15 plus 1 is 16. So that's 16 over 3 divided by 2/3. Okay, I can forget about these denominators because they're of equal parts, which means I have the phrase 16 divided by 2, which would give me the fraction of 16 over 2. Okay, and when I reduce this, I simplify this, I get 8. So what this means is he needs 8 sections of 2/3 of a yard of fencing. So let's go ahead and plug our n equals 8. So n would equal 8 in this instance. Let's go ahead and plug that back into our equation up here. Okay, so let's try 2/3 times 8 equals 5 1/3. Let's see if this works. So the first step, we would rewrite 2 1/3 times 8 over 1. And we would make this would become 16 if we multiply the numerators together. We multiply the denominators together, we get 3, and that would equal 5 1/3. Okay, and then I'm going to simplify this, 16 over 3. I can pull 5 groups of 3 from 16 items with 1 left over, and 5 1/3 equals 5 1/3, and so n truly does equal 8. All right, we are going to be doing some problems in the next couple of days that are very similar to this. Please go back and rewatch this video if I moved kind of fast. Pause it if you need to, take some notes. But we will be spending a few days practicing this skill and concept of using fact families and writing equations from problems. Thank you.